Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to be present again, and we are currently working with two texts, Thrangu Rinpoche's book on Tranquility and Insight, and Pema Chodron's book, How to Meditate. And for the next 3 weeks, we are going to be focused on Pema Chodron's book, How to Meditate. In the final section, which is called Opening Your Hearts to Include Everything, and particularly the chapter called Seven Delights, with her underlying frame, her way of teaching herself of no big deal. So first, I'd like to start with just reflecting on the four dharmas of Gampopa that we read in the middle, at the beginning of every session, while we're waiting for the meditation to start. And this is a profound prayer. You could say that this chapter is a teaching on the four dharmas of Gampopa. And particularly the last line, may confusion dawn as wisdom, is so poignant to me as the time changes in the seasons. There's a whole period where we're meditating right at dawn. And for me, currently, for the last 3.5 months, I've been watching the dawn almost every day. And the past couple of days, I've been reflecting on the dawn itself as meditation instructions, or how it follows stages similar to meditation instructions, in the sense that before dawn, there's drama. There's bright, 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 intense colors. And then just before dawn, it all calms down. The colors become subdued, soft. And at dawn, there is this new light. So in the pre-dawn, there's always, some illumination. But it's not, the bright daylight, but there's pervasive illumination. But when the sun just comes up over the horizon and observing it, it is a different kind of light. And it's a light that it would be very hard to put into words. And so in many ways, this follows our process and experience of meditation. At first, we're caught in the drama of our minds. And then we learn how to settle our minds. And when our minds are fully settled, there is a new understanding. And the more we go deeply into meditation, the illumination of wisdom. So these prayers are considered dohas, or teachings on the path. And in the Seven Delights, Venerable Pema Chodron is sharing a doha by Gosangpa. And today we're just going to work with the first verse, and I'll read it through. When thoughts that there is something perceived and a perceiver lure my mind away and distract, I don't close my sense gateways to meditate without them, but plunge straight into their essential point. They're like clouds in the sky. There's a shimmer where they fly. Thoughts that rise for me, sheer delight. So when we're reading something like this from Gosangpa, this essentially it's a pointing out instruction, just like the four dharmas of Gampopa are a pointing out instruction. But we hear it through the lens of our meditation experience. That's all we can do, because we have only experienced our minds to the degree that we have established a meditation routine, path, retreats, etc. And as we become more steady in our meditation path, we start to understand these simple instructions like the 4 dharmas of Gampopa as pointing out instructions, not so simple at all. And with Pema Chodron, and sometimes with Thich Nhat Hanh, their instructions sound so simple that, we can say, oh, these teachers that have huge followings, they're really just covering the surface layer. But the more we go deeper into meditation, we see that they are great communicators, and they can communicate layered understanding in very simple language. So this is what happens when we read this chapter on the 7 delights, her commentary on the 7 delights. She is taking the whole path, particularly how we deal with difficult situations, and explaining it through this very wonderful poem, The 7 Delights, and showing us how it's a continuation of the previous chapters. The previous chapters were use everything that arises in your life as a teaching. And, the more we learn about the simple letting go of breathing, the simple letting go of thoughts, then the struggles that arise in our life, the way she likes to phrase it, is no big deal. Essentially, we have the capacity to face more and more difficult things without losing our footing or losing our seat on the path of meditation, keeping the view of meditation active as we face the more difficult things. So the other part of this is how very clearly she's presenting that meditation is not bypassing anything, that we know that we're human beings with vulnerabilities. We know that we're human beings with life history. We know that there are painful points in our life that come to the surface in meditation and in our retreats. And so these are I'm going to say advanced instructions, but they're pointing out the pith of how you can look at something difficult if your mind is not, in the phrasing of the poem, lured away. So if we think of, a painful point comes up in our meditation and our mind is lured away into distraction, what does that narration or distraction sound like? Me against the world, us against the world. This happened to me. This is my side of the problem. So there's a immediate switch from the calming down of the mind, the settling of the mind, the lack of interest in thoughts distracting, to me against the world, let's just say, perceived and perceiver. With distraction, there is always perceived and perceiver. So we notice, let's say now, with a little more experience, okay, I can see the story arising. I can see this wound that has haunted me my whole life. And this wound has a context of perceived and perceiver. And so then what happens with the next level of instruction? So if we go back just 2 classes to Thrangu Rinpoche's previous teaching, probably a month and a half ago in terms of time, but the last instruction from Thrangu Rinpoche, there was a wonderful quote: "There's a process of knowing, but no knower or known." So this is a teaching of the absolute. No knower or known, no perceiver and perceived. So in our book learning, we can read things like that, but we don't really know until we have the meditation experience of this, well, how do you use a sentence like that? You know, I can hear it as theory, I can hear it as philosophy, but is this really useful? Because all I know is knower and known. And so it's a hint, let's say, of what will come as you develop your understanding, but it also is a doorway into this particular verse. So let's go back to the verse. When thoughts that there is something, perceiver and perceived, lure my mind away and distract. I don't close my sense gateways to meditate without them, but plunge straight into their essential point. This is the doorway into this sentence, but plunge straight into their essential point. So we're not blocking our senses, we're not blocking the thoughts, we're not blocking the pain. We're looking directly at that thought. So if you think of how you experience a painful point coming up in meditation, you know, this distraction, and you see, okay, this is definitely gone from settling to I'm looking at this storyline or this habitual wound that I can't get over, and fear might arise. But also, why is it distracting? Because we so desperately don't want to feel that pain. And we don't trust yet in the impermanence of the thought, and therefore the impermanence of the pain. So we have all kinds of habits of not to see so that we don't hurt. And we also notice when something painful comes up, there's an intense physical energy. And everybody experiences that differently. For me, it often feels like somebody has punched me in my solar plexus. So I'm going right to that line again, but plunge straight into their essential point. So this is like Venerable Pema's instructions that you've heard me give millions of times. Drop the storyline, look at the energy. So we have that as familiar, we can feel the energy, but now she's inviting us to go further. Okay, storyline is gone, energy is there, it doesn't feel good, but it's impermanent. But now direct your mind right into the essential point, the thought itself. Now, this also can become a healthy meditation habit. And as you are working with the first stage, dropping the storyline and looking at the energy, you're accomplishing, let's say, the foundation. There's much less fear. You understand that there's a physical energy that can be hot or painful. You're aware of those habitual responses of, I don't want to see this. I don't want to feel shame about this. I don't want to have anything to do with this painful thought. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. I'm going to run outside. I'm going to call my friends. All of the things we might do to avoid pain. So we see these habitual responses, and they don't have the power that they used to have anymore. So you go, oh, okay, I see you. You're old friends. I know what you're doing. And then we can build a new habit of looking directly. And this looking directly is really, really interesting. It's like seeing that line of the sun, looking directly at the thought and seeing not only its impermanence, not only its insubstantiality, not only the energy associated with it, but seeing that when all of the habits drop away, when that particular thought is liberated, there is a associated wisdom that arises that is like that sun rising. It's something entirely new in our experience. So she refers to a poem by Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Don't follow the object of hatred. Look at the angry mind. Anger liberated as it is. Anger liberated as it is arises as mirror-like wisdom. So there is a companion of wisdom that is like that new light of the sun, indescribable, yet there, a moment, a flash of wisdom, that the anger holds within it mirror-like wisdom. Or in the words of Gampopa, confusion dawns as wisdom. So each of the strong emotions that are at the base of so many of our confused thoughts have a relationship with a quality of wisdom. And as we practice, over time, we start to have a maybe just, a millisecond. Our fearlessness, our dropping the storyline, our dropping our habits of escape, there's a millisecond of that extraordinary sun of wisdom. And then over time, that habit of looking directly gets stronger, and we're building familiarity with the nature of our mind, the nature of that particular wisdom. And in this process, we have to just be really patient with who we are and where we are. We can hear about seeing mirror-like wisdom, but if we are at the stage of settling our mind and understanding what that process is like, that's simply where we are. The settled mind produces the steadiness, the calm and the steadiness that allows a recognition and seeing of that flash of wisdom. Without one, you can't have the other. Then if you look at the nature of distraction, if we still see the stories as more interesting, more compelling, then our commitment to calming our minds, it's simply a stage of meditation and a stage of understanding how long we've built that habit and how long we've kept those stories as our mental activity. So that's simply where we are today and where we might be for a while. And then, I think I heard Venerable Pema Chodron's instruction on drop the storyline and looking at the energy 25 years ago. I am still working with that instruction. That's my go-to instruction. After I work with that, I have built up a habit of steadying my mind, returning to shamatha. But if it's, a surprise, big, giant thing, if somebody were to say, win the election, I might have a moment of my mind lured away by distraction. So it has to do with the habits we're building and the familiarity that we have accumulated with our mind, the familiarity with the meditative habits replacing the confused habits. And this is a process, and we are all in this process. Just think of the pictures of Buddha Shakyamuni on the night of enlightenment. The paintings have arrows coming at one end and tempting thoughts coming at another end. So it's an illustration of the mind entrenched in samsara, entrenched in the relative, and then the dawn of enlightenment being a waking up. But all of that being not a thriller TV show. It's slow, steady, step by step commitment to continuous mindfulness in the difficult times, in the simple times, and all of that building our capacity to see wisdom, to see the nature of our minds as it is. So it makes every meditation session then very interesting. I had to laugh. I was coming in yesterday morning, and there was a woman at the desk, and she said, "Oh, today's dawn wasn't much." I was like, how can you judge the dawn? So similarly, how can we judge our meditation sessions if it feels like, we're just trying to calm thoughts? It's still the dawn. It's still our growing, blossoming mind. And where we are today, that is giving us the building blocks to have those moments of insights that we hear from very experienced meditators. And as we do, have flashes from that we might have read about, then how to turn that millisecond into longer and longer periods until that is the habit, not the distraction is the habit. So what I'd like to do now is put the poem in the chat room. Let's see if that works. And let's just take the poem in as it is and contemplate it in the context of what aspect of the poem might be useful for you right now in your meditation process. Let's see if it goes. Yes, it did go. And like all of the Dharma presentations, the narrator starts with the view. So this verse is the view. And then as we go through the next 6 verses, there are 7 delights, 1 in each verse, then the view becomes more clear. But just enjoy it, think of it in relation to how you are understanding today without any criticism of yourself that you should be understanding more, better, different part. Rather, what can you take from this poem today that brings joy in your meditation session, joy and encouragement in your meditation session? So let's contemplate this for, let's say, 10 minutes, and then we'll have a discussion. And close. So one of the important things about this poem, and it's a refrain that carries through, sheer delight. So all these things that we think are bad in meditation, oh, I got so distracted, why does that pain from when I was a child come up over and over again? The yogi, the great yogi, say, oh, it's arising sheer delight. So it just transforms our expectations and opinions of welcoming our full experience. So I'm going to do a quick dedication and close the live stream. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.